What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Seoulweaver Show. I am your host, Will Brooks, and as always, I'm coming to you from right smack dab in the middle of Seoul with a brand new episode of the show. Running a little late today. Got quite a bit going on. So my apologies, but I changed things and forgot I changed them, and everything was all set up all cool and nice, but then it wasn't, basically. No. So there's like probably more than what I'm comfortable going on, or what I'm comfortable with having going on. Actually, no, everything is just the same. It's just that I try to do a little bit more than you ever have one of those days where it's like, hey, I got plenty of time, or one of those instances where you're like, I've got plenty of time, man. Like I've got 2 hours. I've been planning the show all week, but I came home with like 2 hours just to kind of do some fine tuning things, and then I was like, all I gotta do is set this on and set this up, get everything scheduled right, or get everything presented right, and then I changed something. And all that work, man, that whole 2 hours just went down the drain. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I personally had a pretty good weekend. Let me make sure my levels are good. I had a pretty good weekend. I don't know how well you guys could hear all that. I forgot I come through super loud on my headphones if I have them turned up to where they were before. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. I had a pretty good weekend. We actually got out and hung with a friend of ours, and we were in Gangnam actually shooting, like just taking pictures and shooting like a photo shoot for a new restaurant that's opening out there. It's the Seoul Caravan. It's an Australian food restaurant. But the owner is really cool. He's going to be on the show at some point in time when things slow down a little bit from him, because he's got a story he wants to tell and share. And that kind of bleeds into what I want to talk about for the podcast today, because I do want to talk a little bit about the change and the point. I guess I want to talk a little bit about the interviews. I had an exchange this weekend that prompted that, and I'll get into that a little bit more when I get to the podcast. But that will be the podcast topic. So it was a little tough to do with my son, but my son is the only one that shot pictures, and he's probably the only one they'll use. Well, he is the only one they'll use if they use him, because he was the only one that took pictures there. The rest of us had a little bit of a wife aggro, and she was like, hey, we got to go do XYZ and do this, go to the bank. And I was like, man, why you didn't do that during the week? In any case, chilled pretty hard on Sunday, so I'm ready to get into something this weekend. What that will be, I'm not 100% sure. But on to this week's topics, I guess, or maybe I can clean up a little bit about last week's topic. I don't know if you guys remember, but last week, if you happen to catch the show, you saw me have like a little fail, right, with a video, and it was a video of President Trump talking about Kim Jong-un. I started to play it, and I was like, no, this isn't the video about Kim Jong-un. He's talking about the tax return, or the tax policy, and the changes they're going to do there that are going to screw people, not the war in North Korea that's going to screw people. And it was like I went back. I tried so many times to find the right video. That was the right video the whole time. The whole time, that was the video I was looking for. It's just that Trump just threw that comment in there because that's the way he talks. He'll especially lately, he's just having conversations where he's like just floating around on topics and then just hitting on one and hitting on another one, and then he'll eventually get back to the topic he's talking about. So he kind of threw me for a loop there. And I didn't even realize he was who I was talking about. Or that was the article, or that was the actual video that I was talking about. But he called Kim Jong-un a sick puppy. I don't know why I even wanted to show that. That probably was something I could have done without in the first place, and maybe that was the whole point of me not being able to get into, or not being able to locate the actual video. Another thing that we talked about last week, that I talked about last week that I wanted to kind of bring to you guys' attention was, because I'll revisit it again, was languages in international marriages, and how a friend of mine and our wives had a debate about who learns whose language and why it always seems to be one way and not the other. The reason I bring that up again is not because I want to open hash out and open old wounds. It's because I actually saw some conversations this weekend that kind of were in the same range. People were asking questions in a Facebook group that I'm in about the kids and how to keep them, the best way to keep them bilingual. And there were all these different conversations about, or all these different recommendations and opinions on which language you should speak in home or which language you should speak in school, and how you can maintain that bilingual aspect of the kids. And that's something I'll revisit later, because I almost want to talk to a speech therapist or a speech specialist about what's the best route to maintain the bilingual aspect of your kids, because they tend to grow up bilingual, and then in another, I don't know, by the time they get like into school, like maybe third grade, like my little son is in second grade now, and we're having a hard time keeping him speaking English. And honestly, if it wasn't for my mother-in-law here, his grandma, then he probably wouldn't speak. We're having a hard time keeping him speaking Korean. And if it wasn't for a mother-in-law who doesn't speak English, he probably wouldn't speak much Korean at all, because we're noticing that he's talking to my wife. She'll ask him a question in Korean. He'll understand it. He'll respond to her in English. And we're like, whoa, why didn't he respond in Korean? So that's something to look forward to in future episodes. So, man, this whole interview thing is coming along. Actually, let me not jump into that just yet. So let me jump into what we have going on for today. I already told you what the podcast is about, and how I'm going to talk about a little bit about the interview process. I had something happen this weekend, or maybe earlier this week, in looking for interviewees that prompted me to do this. And we're going to talk a little bit, of course, about the current event show. We're going to jump into North Korea. We're going to spend a lot of time on North Korea today, because a lot has happened, from U.S. politicians to North Korea's stance on going to war, to how the war affects the Olympics. And we'll go into kind of transition through the Olympics and other things into social news that is happening here in Korea that caught my attention and I thought was interesting. And then we'll go ahead and finish up with social media posts and upcoming events. Don't really have much for upcoming events today, but I'll let you know what I got going on this weekend and what else I saw going on this or next weekend. One of the two. One other event that I saw, a couple of events that we had that I can see going on this weekend. So let me first start, and then I apologize. I'm gonna kind of wing this myself, because I really do want to go into why I want to do interview segments. Because you guys probably are aware that, I don't know how many of you are aware, I actually started the podcast probably 2 years ago now, a little over 2 years ago. And there are a bunch of Seoulweaver Podcast episodes where it's just monologue. It's just me giving you my opinion of everything that's happening, and or everything I'm experiencing, or things I have experienced. And I mean, some topics that I talked about here, some topics that I talk about here that I've spoken about here already, I've even referenced them. For example, the earthquakes, and what the earthquakes made, how that whole concept of having an earthquake in Korea scares me, and why, and what part of Korean culture or what I've seen here in my time in Korea makes me a little afraid of having to run into an earthquake or having an earthquake here. But I've given you my take. It's out there, and it's really only one take. And one thing I really want to do with the podcast segment is let you guys know what it's like to live in Korea. And even though I've been doing that in previous podcast segments to the best of my ability, I realize early on that you're only getting one take, one take. And if you'll notice, in one of the previous episodes, or maybe it's prepisode 11 or something like that, I talked about how my take isn't really all that great of a take. Like, it's not really the best take to get the full experience of the expat, because I personally don't have a full expat experience. I'll link up in the description about what I mean by a full expat experience. But yeah, so I think it's really important to get other people on the show. And that was just my initial reasoning for doing an interview show. the reason, and then as I was reaching out earlier this week, or maybe this is early, this is just last night, or maybe the night before, probably last night, as I was reaching out to people and kind of testing the waters to see if people in Facebook wanted to be on the show, and if people who, maybe people who authored books about life in Korea wanted to be on the show. As I was reaching out to people, the responses I was getting back were pretty interesting, and it was cool because a lot of people, I'm really just not going to end up having a hard time, and especially initially, it's going to be easy to find people to be on the show because a lot of people like to talk about Korea. They're just like me. And they like to talk about their experiences. But one of the exchanges in one of the groups I had was pretty interesting because they all, just amongst the 4 guys that were in that group, they all had like these different takes. I can give you this take. I can give you that take. One guy was like, hey, I can give you a take from a guy who really likes it here. Another one, I can give you a take from a guy who doesn't really like it here, or who could take it or leave it, or who just is here because it's convenient, or who's here, who's on the fence about both ways, or somebody who really doesn't too much care for it here, but is kind of stuck because he built a family here and now he can't just leave. And even in that small group, it kind of exemplified it made me realize what the sheer example of what I want to do with the podcast is the reason I went into this idea of doing an interview show anyway. And that is, when people ask you, what's Korea like? Is it cool over there? Is it nice over there? It's given it like they're asking you like, that's just the way it is over here, right? And you can only give them so much. You can only give them your one opinion. Like every opinion that somebody gives when they explain what it's like in Korea, it's based on their experiences, their personalities, their origin, where they come from, their outlook on life, and everything else that makes them them. That you're getting their opinion, you're getting Korea through them. And so there's nothing wrong with that. But if you make your decision based on only that, then you're not giving yourself a fair shake. You aren't just like them. So Korea might not be like that for you. So my desire is to get as many people as possible to give their take from on life in Korea. So that way you can pick and choose between people who maybe have your same personality, or have an outgoing personality, or is an extrovert or an introvert, but doesn't really like change, or doesn't really like, or somebody who seems to be really not selfish, but really conscious of their personal space. And if you're like that, and you take these different traits from different interviews that you hear here on Seoulweaver Show, and you say, okay, well, I'm not going to have a problem with it. One of the guys said, things don't really get to me, so I like it here. And maybe if you're like that, but you are kind of aware of your personal space, other than that's your one pet peeve, then okay, I can come over here and I won't have a problem with a lot of things, but I'll have a problem with the crowds in Seoul, for example. And that's just a brief example. I'm probably kind of spitballing here. I probably should have came up with another one and maybe a better one, but that's the general gist. Is like, there's so many different takes, and the more expats that start to come over here, the more Korea changes. There's always going to be a different take. If you talk to somebody who hasn't been in Korea since the 80s, they're going to have a different take on what it's like over here. And that also is based on their personality and XYZ and the things that make them them. So I talked to people before I came over here. They hadn't been here since pre-88. That's before the Olympics came to Korea the first time. And there were people who loved it and people who hated it, but it was like the same Korea. They just had different takes on it. And that's the same. This is what you'll get from me. It's the same as what you'll get when you're in Facebook groups, when you're in expats in Korea who love living here, and you're in Oink, where people seem to be on both sides of the coin. I'll get people out of those groups to kind of come and tell their story and try to give you a very honest, unfiltered, somewhat filtered. Like, I don't want people on here going crazy. My son might find these one day, and even I'm a little less liberal with the language and things like that. I just keep it respectful, and I don't want to offend my Korean hosts. So just keep it respectful, but still kind of tell people what you think. Give you people your take, and give you all takes from different people that have been here for a long time, short time, and that work on base, or that work out in the community, or that teach English, or that are expats and vice presidents at a bank. There's just so many different things that you can do, that work in a factory. So that's my take, and that's my plan for the interview, for the interview segment. And then from that point on, once I've kind of beaten that horse to death, because I do plan on kind of having people on to talk about it as much as possible, I want to go into deeper topics as I become more learned about expat life here in Korea, and have people on that are, just have journalists on, or people who wrote in-depth articles about certain issues in Korea, or again, people who, authors who authored books. There are a couple of people I have in mind, other bloggers, other event planners and things like that, and just other people who are married into Korea, and everything that you could think of. Like anybody who can give their take, like I do when I have them on the show. And then, that kind of opens me up. I'm not sure how it's gonna be. I'm not sure what the best policy is. Like, should I not have people on a live show? Should I don't know. I'm gonna have people on a live show until it bites me in the ass. And then if they're not comfortable being live, then I'm just gonna go ahead and record the episode. And at this part of the segment, I'll just drop out, play that recording, and then we'll go on to the interview segment. So that's my take on interviews. That's the reason why. I think it's just the best way to get as many opinions as possible out there, and give anybody who's giving me the honor of their time, to kind of give them a real fair assessment. And then another thing about, well, not so much about the interviews, but about the show as well, is last week we had some of my boys in the chat that were just kind of viewing the show and hanging on, but that brought their own value to the show as well. So I really want to figure out live chat, because it's going to be a little tough with the delay. It's not going to be tough, man. It's just going to be me kind of getting off a topic or getting onto the next topic and then jumping back. But I really do appreciate you all that jump in, watch this live, and then comment and give value in the comment section, because that's the reason I'm doing it live. That's what I wanted to be all about. I was pleading for a two-way conversation in that first rendition of this show. In any case, that's all I got for the interview segment. So let me take a quick break, get things hashed out. Still don't have my music planned out. Maybe I can do something a little different here. But I'll get things planned out and get things arranged a little bit better, so we can all see what I'm talking about when I jump on and go into the current events show. Be back in a minute. So I am back. We can go ahead and jump right into it with the current events segment of the show. Needless to say, we're going to start off with North Korea. So if we were tracking from last week, North Korea launched their new missile, and it's almost all starting to blend, like to swing together. Man, swinging this mic out was probably a mistake. It's all starting to kind of stream together, man. Like I can't even keep the weeks apart. But North Korea is now launching their missile, and they're trying to plan out another missile, another nuclear bomb test. And this is a weird thing to see. It's funny to see stuff like this, because it's like, what is the point? North Korea warns it will not avoid war with the U.S., though it does not want one. I don't even know what that means, man. Like, I'm like, come on. Like, it's just crazy to say. So let me read the statement here before I go into it, because maybe it's not that crazy. We do not wish for a war, but shall not hide from it. And should the U.S. Miscalculate our patience and light the fuse for a nuclear war, we will surely make the U.S. Dearly pay the consequences with our mighty nuclear force, which we have constantly strengthened. The Korean Central News Agency is who reported that. Yeah. So one of the biggest concerns that I have with this whole North Korea thing is, like, I've not heard of a scenario that sounds agreeable. I mean, I'll find myself saying that probably every week, but like, nothing sounds good. And if you're not going to avoid war, but you don't want one, like, how do those two measure? And you're not involved in talks. Now, I did see an article that I didn't get a chance to catch, that some U.S. diplomat is going to North Korea, and maybe there's some back channeling or some arrangement going on there where he's actually going to try to de-escalate things. But I mean, if in the grand scheme of things, it's been nothing but escalation for probably the past, I don't know, I think the issue with North Korea has been nothing but escalation since the death of Kim Jong-il. So I don't know, so maybe somebody, and if anybody out there is listening and you actually have, like, information counter to that, please let me know. But I'm going to get into a few things that happened over here in North Korea, but like that, or over here in Korea on the peninsula with the conflict, because there's a lot of statements that kind of make it look like the U.S. is provoking North Korea with their drills that they do twice a year, every year, and are defensive in nature. Anyway, we'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, this is North Korea saying that they don't want war. And I mean, that's rhetoric that I don't think I've heard before. And so it's crazy to think about what's going on in North Korea. So North Korea, like, if you try to, like, imagine, like, why would you not come? Like, the way I try to imagine, why would you not come to talks? Why would you cut communication altogether if you didn't want a war? Like, the way to stop the war is talking, but maybe they're cutting communication because they've been trying to communicate, or the lines of communication have been open for X amount of years and there's been no progress made. Although I thought Kaesong and the Kaesong Industrial Complex, I may be saying that wrong, and family member reunions and things like that were a bit of progress. But maybe that's progress for you if you're in South Korea. It's probably not anything if you're in North Korea and you're watching your funds dwindle and you're watching people just slowly, your country is, like, slowly being, like, choked to death by Western influence in a way. And that's another thing that I don't think people get about what's going on with North Korea. As far as North Korea is concerned, they were minding their own business, having their conflict in their country, and because of their ideology, they were winning. Because of their ideology, the U.S. came in and stopped them, and almost wiped them out completely if it wasn't for China coming in. And that's the story that's been told to me. I don't know, I wasn't there, I don't know the whole story, but historically I believe that's the Korean conflict in a nutshell. So really, North Korea is like, yo, we had everything under control then the U.S. came in here and stopped us. So yeah, they're the enemy. They went, mind your own business. This is our region. We've been fighting over here on this peninsula for doing things our way. Who are you to come in here and tell us that we can't do it the way we've been doing it all this time? Because you're, the stronger power, even from another region. And it's pretty crazy to look at it from that way, because it's like, yeah, man. Like, and then you start to ask yourself. Actually, I'm going to get into it in just a moment, so I won't even jump ahead. But North Korea is not going to stop. They're not going to stop. That's kind of the issue, because they don't feel like they're wrong. So here is some upsetting news that actually came, that I actually saw while I was scrolling through, I believe I was scrolling through Facebook and I found this, but this is a Korea Times article about North Korean children who are going to face malnutrition since the U.S. has cut off the food supply. And the UN, has cut off their food supply, and it's almost interchangeable, to be completely honest. Maybe I was more right the first time than I was the second time. But what's going on here is the World Food Program. They basically had to pick between providing food and aid. They ran out of funding. They only have a certain amount, and they had to pick between providing food and aid to pregnant women who are lactating and children under 2 years old, and providing aid to kindergartners who are children under 5 years old. And they basically had to maybe not even flip a coin. They basically had to say, well, children under 2 require more nourishment, so they get the funding. And the reason they ran out of funding is because the UN basically cut funding that was sent to WFP, World Food Program, Korea. So I mean, this is kind of the big argument about sanctions. Like, do they work or not? Like, I mean, and there's basically two schools of thought here. There are probably more that are more complicated, but in a nutshell, you've got people who say you send that aid over there because it's a humanitarian effort and you want to help people because you know they're starving over there and they've got prison camps or death camps, and the people are not at fault for what they're experiencing. It's the government doing it to the people, so send them aid. And then you have another school of thought that says, hey, you're sending that aid over there, but the government, those people are still starving. The government's just using that aid to fund their military or to feed their military, which they'll use to fight us later. Valid point. I mean, and even if they are, now you don't go and contribute to charity or try to help in humanitarian aid for the recognition. But even if you do give the North Korean government food, or if you funnel food into North Korea, there's no guarantee that North Korea isn't just telling those people or telling the citizens that, hey, this is just coming from us. And they're not even, I mean, the goodwill that you're trying to institute or install into the people over there isn't really being delivered with your same message. And I think both of those are valid points. I mean, it's with the sanctions as a whole, even when you're telling China, or even last week we talked about how the U.S. is putting pressure on China to stop providing oil to North Korea. Well, here's the deal: if you start cutting off food or aid and food, and you start cutting off like energy, and people are starving and freezing to death, then is that any better? Like, you're basically holding a country's own citizens for hostage. Like, you're saying, hey, if your government really wants to feed you, then they should start doing things the way we want them to do it, or stop pursuing military advancement or whatever it is, and start feeding you. If your government doesn't make that decision, then you all die. And in a way, I don't see much difference between that and just going over there and bombing people and bombing civilians. Like, they're in one way they're dying because you can't get along with their government, and another way they're dying because their government doesn't want to. I don't know, maybe there is a big difference. I'm not sure, because now that I say it out loud, it sounds like a big difference. But you're causing the government, like, you're taking away aid. Just seems like and this is the problem with the issue with North Korea, is it's all freaking complicated and confusing, and you need smart people to handle it. We'll get to it later about why I pointed it out in that fashion. So yeah, this is pretty rough, man. And then you look at the comments, and just to pick out one of the comments, did I really want to read this? Yeah, this is a comment on this article in the Korea Times. A comment by one of the readers. The U.S. government should stop this ridiculous waiting game, going on for decades, and put an end to this. We will feel sorry we did nothing in the name of peace for so long, just like we did in Germany and in Japan in World War II. The North would have no trouble feeding its population if Rocket Man would stop exporting food to gain money that does not go to his people. South Korea has an overflow of reserve. I don't feel like reading all this, man. This is kind of the take, right? Like, this is why I think this is problematic, because you got these people over there in the States that are, I don't know what maybe he's basing. I mean, this guy could have gone to North Korea and seen it. He could have been a former ambassador. I don't know who he is. I don't know him from Adam. He could be active duty. He could be any, but my bet is that he's not, and he probably ain't affiliated with the military. He probably is typing this comment from safe and wherever he is, and not having to sacrifice anything real on his own to make all this happen. Not gonna join the army and come over here to liberate the freedom, come over here to intervene. Not gonna, I don't know. In most cases, from what I've seen, those are the people who make comments like this. But I don't know. Are we getting to the point where this is the only option? Some people think not. So I guess this is actually news from an article that I talked about a while ago, to be honest. There was an article earlier about North Korea actually hacking Seoul's defenses, or Seoul's cyber defenses. And they actually, in the hack, one of the pieces of information they got was this. So Seoul has started a decapitation. Seoul Korean military launches special forces to decapitate Kim Jong-un. That's a provocative title. That's not really what they do. I don't think that's really their role. But I'm sure that is part of one of their goals. But this is a decapitation unit to kind of go and take out key leaders and key positions, maybe key military installations or something like that, key leadership military installations. And this isn't them. This picture isn't them. I'm sorry. Let me go ahead and clarify that. These guys look a little silly, so I'm sure that's not them. They just needed a picture to put there. But yeah, it's like a secret, like a special unit made to go in there and take out specific targets, and I guess included, it's like 1,000-man brigade, and Kim Jong-un is probably included in that. And I don't know, did I ever think about what taking Kim Jong-un out of the picture would make that country look like? Like, who knows if it would be better? I mean, look how Iraq went. Like, who knows if that would be the best course of action? But I guess it's one that has to be weighed and has to be considered. So that's what they're doing. Kim Jong-un already know about this, man. They got that. They hacked the defense ministry's plans, and this was among some of the data that they got. So this wasn't a surprise. So I'm surprised I didn't hear. Maybe because them actually activating it. Maybe I'm surprised I didn't hear anything from North Korea on that. This actually reminds me of a movie that they made in South Korea, probably a movie from the late 90s or mid 90s, about a movement in the 80s where they went and they took these guys that were on death row or something like that, these criminals, these gangsters, and I could be messing up this plot, and they trained them, and they said, hey, we're going to send you on a suicide mission to kill, back then, Kim Il-sung. Maybe Kim Jong-il. One of the North Korean dictator. And so they were making a plan to raise these guys, but then they came up with the Sunshine Policy. So I'm going to say 90s. And then they came up with the Sunshine Policy and decided to axe the plan altogether. Well, then they had to do something with the guys. So their plan was to kill them. And the scene I remember the most out of the, and then these are guys that were training them the whole time. Military guys were training these criminal guys, and they were all getting close. Some of them were building relationships, getting close, and some of them were just developing hate for each other, and so on and so forth. And military guys, basically, the military guys make this plan to kill them, and then the other guys find out about it, and then all hell breaks loose. I think that was a pretty good movie, man. I gotta find that and put that. If you're not in the Seoulweavers Facebook group, join the Seoulweavers Facebook group, because I'm gonna put it in there, put the link to it in there where you can watch it, because it was a pretty decent flick. Should I have said flick? Probably not. Lindsey Graham. I mean, you guys know who this guy is, man. He's been calling for war with North Korea. He's been the loudest voice in Congress, or in the Senate for a while now. So the article, there's two articles here that I'm talking about, but let me just give you the I got some video of Lindsey Graham talking, and we'll do that video really quick, and then maybe I'll throw up in my mouth a little bit. But let's hear what Lindsey Graham has to say about the situation in North Korea. If you can't tell, I'm really sick of this guy. I don't know if I'm more sick of him or if I'm more sick of people who are, screaming, beating the war drums from a safe distance, man. That's just, maybe that's just me because I'm here in Korea. Let's go ahead and play this and see what it's up. See what's, go ahead. Sorry, I had to get that ready. Let me go ahead and play this and see what he's got to say. Let's start in
North Korea. Where are we with North Korea right now?
We're getting close to military conflict because North Korea is marching toward marrying up the technology of an ICBM with a nuclear weapon on top that can not only get to America but deliver the weapon. We're running out of time. McMaster said that yesterday. I'm going to urge the Pentagon not to send any more dependents to South Korea. South Korea should be an unaccompanied tour. It's crazy to send spouses and children to South Korea given the provocation of North Korea. So I want them to stop sending dependents, and I think it's now time to start moving American dependents out of South Korea.
Wow. Yeah, so I mean, when you see people who beat the war drums over here, man, who just want so badly to just get into a war, it's almost like I don't know if you watched that show Community, but there's a scene in there where Pierce Hawthorne, played by Chevy Chase, says something like, "You people are the reason it took so long to get into Vietnam." Like, man, Vietnam was a terrible thing. We probably shouldn't have went there in the first place. And you were mad because we didn't go sooner? And that's like Lindsey Graham is a real life version of that. Secondly, just to kind of imagine, what do you think? What message would that send to North Korea? Like, what would that actually bring on the war if the U.S. were to stop sending families over here and start evacuating families from here? That could actually spark the war. Like, that could be the action that sparks the war, because that's kind of showing your hand. And who the hell does Lindsey Graham think he is in the first place to be telling the Pentagon what to do, right? Like, before I did this, my intentions were to look up Lindsey Graham and see what his qualifications were. I didn't get around to it because, quite honestly, I hate him. I didn't want to go research him. I hate this stance of, like, we gotta go over there and do something. I hate it from people who aren't gonna do anything. It may be a necessary stance, but even if it is, it should come from a place of, like, regret, man. Lindsey Graham looks like he is in a hurry to get people over there, not because it's, this needs to happen, just because, I don't know. I just watched that documentary, Why We Fight. Do I have the thing here? I just watched a documentary called Why We Fight, and it was a long version of the documentary about yeah, man, he's smoking. But yeah, it's a long version of what Dwight D. Eisenhower said on his exit address when he warned us about the military-industrial complex. Now, this is really hits home close for me because, my God, he's an Air Force Reserve Colonel. Reserve. No offense to my reservists out there, man, but still calling for all-out war with an entire country as a reservist, man, it's kind of like. So, in any case, what was I saying? Oh man, it threw me off. It's just this place of, so you got the military industrial complex. It hurts me because it kind of pays the bills, man. So it puts me in a compromised state, because I can't really talk about it as bad as I want to, because I work for the DoD. So, but like this culture, I mean, the DoD is necessary, Department of Defense is necessary, but the culture of going to battle for the sake of making money for these companies is ridiculous. And Lindsey Graham, I would bet that he's got some stock in some kind of way in one of these companies that's going to make a lot of money off of a war in North Korea. let's get back to what else he was saying, man. He said something else that's pretty crazy. Let me go ahead and chime in real quick and let him finish this out.
States.
Should the Congress be having a big open conversation about preemptive war?
Yeah, I think so. I think the president, as inherent authority as commander-in-chief, has the ability to strike North Korea to protect the American homeland. But this discussion needs to happen among ourselves.
Let me ask you about the president's team. There were a lot of back and forth this week about whether Secretary of State Tillerson was going to stay in the job. Do you, net, after all the reports and so forth is over, do you have confidence in the president's team around him to manage this tricky question?
He's got the best national security team of anybody I've seen since I've been in Washington. The president himself early on made the right decision. I'm not going to allow North Korea.
See, here's the problem, man. How does he have the best team that you said, best national security team that you have? It's not a time to be kissing the president's ass when it's time to go to war. That's all I'm saying. Like, it's crazy to just say something that I would think this is demonstrably false. To say that he's got the best team that he's ever seen since he's been in Washington. President Trump hadn't put together great teams, man. Like, they talk about themselves, about how dysfunctional they are. So how could this be his national security, though? That's on point. So let's go to war and let's put lives on the line. It's just a crazy statement. It's just a crazy position. And I don't have the confidence. Here's the deal. If I was confident that people knew what they were doing, then, and they were saying like, hey, look, this isn't the only, like, this is the only way to do this. It's the best way to do this. It's the best way without risking American lives. We can get in there. We can do it strategically. And if I had faith in the intelligence and the competence of the people who are going to make this happen, then maybe it would make sense. Because again, there is no great resolution to the war with North Korea. It just doesn't. I mean, it doesn't exist, man. Or to the Korean conflict, the conflict on the Korean Peninsula. There's no great solution to it. There's no easy solution. And if there is, somebody say something. Maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I am. But if there is a great solution to this, somebody offer it up, because I would love to hear it. But I mean, God, maybe I just don't grasp the concept of just sending people anyway, sending kids. I don't grasp the concept of war. I don't grasp the concept of old cats like this sitting at the house while they send people's children and people's mothers and fathers to die because they want to make some money. And I'm sorry, that's just the way I see it. I can't help it, especially after watching that documentary. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch that documentary. Why We Fight. So that's Lindsey Graham in a nutshell. If I ever meet Lindsey Graham, or if I ever hear that Lindsey Graham is in my vicinity, I'm gonna protect myself from myself and go in the opposite direction as fast as possible, just to make sure I don't say nothing crazy, or even worse, do nothing crazy. I just think he's on to the next topic. So and then the bottom line is, like, who is he really? That was my question. Like, who is he to say that the Pentagon got to stop sending people over here? He's nobody, man. They ain't gonna stop. They ain't gonna change anything. So that's like all the North Korea news, specifically to the conflict, and it kind of bleeds over into this thing, man. It bleeds over into North Korea news, and bleeds over into social news. So, that doesn't look right. Let me get that back. Gotta fix that up really quick. Hang on one sec. So in social news, I might as well go ahead and you see it's an airplane there. So airplanes are like changing their routes when they fly from South Korea to the U.S. This is actually a picture of Singapore Airlines. It's not like, it's just a plane. That's probably not a plane flying from Seoul to LA, but it could be. But it's a picture from Singapore Airlines. They actually changed their routes because they don't want their airlines to fly. They don't want their aircraft to fly, in locations that could be subject to North Korean missile attacks or missile tests. Maybe not even a taxi. But yeah, Singapore changed it. They were the only ones. They're the first airline to actually make this change, which is pretty crazy. Asiana Airlines, they did the same in 2010, just to kind of avoid any possibilities, any mishaps or anything like that. And Korea Air did the same, or Korea Air probably did the same thing in 2010. I didn't verify that. But their take now, Asiana Airlines and Korea Airlines, there are no current routes that fly through a dangerous zone, according to Asiana Airlines. And Korea Air, they said there's absolutely no danger to passenger safety. So, of course, that's what they're going to say. What if they were to say anything else? That's why there's short statements. They're like, no, just short and sweet. Don't leave nothing open to interpretation. Don't say too many words. How badly would that hurt the company? But it's crazy that we got to come in and go through this now. We're at this point again, which brings a point up to the folks that they were talking about, like that comment that kid was saying before, or that commenter on one of the earlier articles was saying, like, hey, this has been going on for a long time. Is it not about time that we went in and just this is the rip the Band-Aid off scenario? They're like, just rip the Band-Aid off, just do the hard thing and then get out of there. It's just not. It just doesn't seem like it's the people who are actually going to do the Band-Aid ripping and the dying that are saying that. Another issue that's happening here, Pyeongchang Olympics. Oh, that's why I had it so big. North Korea won't provoke during the Pyeongchang Olympics, according to the IOC communicator. So yeah, I think I've read a lot about how the IOC has a lot of money to throw around and how they could probably, there's probably some financial backing, some financial insurance associated with North Korea promising not to interfere in the Olympics or interfere during the Olympics. I mean, I don't think that was a hard sell, to be completely honest. North Korea is just, what do they consider provoke, right? What's provoking? Man, I didn't even touch on that topic. Anyway, so so if you're coming to the Olympics or thinking about coming to the Olympics, you have the IOC communicator's word that North Korea is not gonna mess up your day, not gonna mess up your hockey game. So that's it. I'm done talking about North Korea, guys. Let me go ahead and jump on to. I didn't even have a picture of this, but this caught my attention. I really wanted to talk about it. 80%. This angle is probably not the best. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not saying the IOC communicator is wrong. I'm just saying a perfect time to make a point would be during the Olympics. Yeah, I'm sure DOD will be on ridiculously high alert during the actual, just replying to a comment. I'm sure DOD will be on extremely high alert during the Olympics. It probably gonna be crazy. So on to this topic, 80% of Korean middle school students do not mind homosexuality. This is kind of, so there's a big fight in Korea for the LGBT community. Probably something else in there that I missed. They add more letters every time I hear it. But yeah, like in Korea, there's a lot of hate shown towards transgender, bisexual people, homosexual people. And it's kind of a surprise. The reason this stuck out to me is because the conservative aspect of the country tends to make it a little harder for people in the LGBT community. So it's surprising to see the children of these people, the grandchildren probably of these people, who are 80% on board with it. And so they had numbers that I won't read through because they don't really mean anything, but the vast, shocking numbers, like shockingly even numbers on people who would be okay if they found out one of their friends are transgender, would be okay if they found out one of their friends are homosexual. Some that would, like the percentages that would actually put distance between them once they found out who they really were, they were in the teens, versus the positions or the decision to actually remain closer to them and shows not solidarity, but show support and ask if they needed support in their life, I guess, in this endeavor. We're all in the 60% range, 70% range, which was kind of a surprise. But the middle school students, the society has a lot of time to like get to work on them and try to make them conform to what they want them to conform to. And speaking of conforming, somebody said they didn't know the IOC were protectors and defenders. Like, they really gonna do, what if North Korea does do something? What they gonna do? What is the IOC gonna do? Catholics and women's groups clash over the abortion ban. So here's the deal. Abortion is current. Here's a current law on abortion. Women who get abortions have a chance of serving either 1 year in prison or a $2 million or 2 million won fine. 2 million won is like $1,800, in between $1,800 and $1,900. $1,900 fine if they are caught getting an abortion. For the doctors who provide abortions, they're actually sentenced to 2 years in prison. This doesn't actually happen that much from what I hear, but that's the current rule out there right now. And so obviously there are women out there who want the rule banned. In fact, there was an actual petition started on the presidential website that got 230,000 supporters, where they said, hey, we think the current rule banning abortion should be abolished. And so with that support, that prompted a study. So now the Catholic Church is getting involved. They're coming over and they've started a campaign to get 1 million votes or get 1 million signatures to keep the law in effect. The law right now, it only allows abortion in the case of it's only allowed in the case of rape, in the case of that the person that the woman is pregnant by, she cannot marry them because they're too closely related. That prompts me to think about how you can't really, like, since so many people have similar last names, the same last names in Korea, like Kim, No, seriously, how did I forget all the Korean? Kim, No, Yu, Yi, and Lee are like the same name. Like, those are really, really common last names. Sun, those are common last names in Korea. And it's crazy because you're like, well, how do you know who you can marry or not? Because y'all got the same last name. And then they have like family registrars that show what section, like if your last name is Kim, my wife, she's got a family registrar that shows what section Kim she is, what part of the country her Kim lineage is from. And it's like, whoa, that's crazy. But if something happens and you don't get down to that, you don't have, like, you hook up in a club and you hook up at the club and you don't have like your paperwork on you, and you hook up with a Kim that originates in the same location you originate with, y'all can't get married. So I guess, and if there happens to be abortion involved in that, yeah, Lee, Sun, Yi, Trey. I forgot about Trey. How? Park? There we go. That's why I think the people in the chat are ever so valuable, because I'll be slipping when I get up here. So anyway, it's only allowed in those cases. And then in the case of in case the fetus has a mental disorder or a disease, some of that seems a little unfair. But what you're seeing here are two different sets of protesters. Basically, on the left, you got two different parties clashing over abortion. And this is kind of an age-old argument at this point. I mean, we see what the abortion argument is like in the U.S. And I think this actual the black protest that's happening, where all the women are in black on the right hand side. It's probably your right hand side. That's something that originated in Poland, I believe, or Poland, excuse me. And so it originated in Poland, and so it lets you know that this fight has been something, and it's like just the tradition has traveled over to Korea. So it's a fight that's been waging for a long time. I'm going to try to get off that topic and not really go into it anymore. Just thought it was interesting. It's interesting in Korea because Korea also has a population crisis where their population, like the working population, is dropping and the birth rate is super low. and they're anticipating a population problem crisis in X amount of years. I'm not sure, that may not have anything to do with it, but allowing abortions can't positively affect that, I don't think. So that's all I got for the current events show. That was actually a lot of articles. I don't know what time it is. It's already 9. What? We'll be right back with social media and posts and upcoming events. Got a lot of videos, so I'm gonna go AFK for a brief minute. I'll grab myself a beer and come back and probably talk a little bit about beer, to be completely honest with you, because I got to post about beer, but I don't know what order it's in. I shall return in just a moment. See you in a few. Your boy is back, trying to get things figured out at what I want to start with first of all. Let's just start with this, because it's just a quick thing that I took from the wife. Sent me a couple of pictures today. Let's start with the right. So this one on the right is, oh, you can't see it because I did it. Let me just do it on the fly. That's a SWAT truck that is I guess not too far away from our house. But if you'll notice, it's got like that awning up at the top. It's a food truck called SWAT. Yeah. Cute, right? It's like, that's all I wanted to say. And then this right here, man, this is a dude selling, I don't even know what this is. I didn't go to US Weapons when I was in basic. But this is like a freaking, is that a stinger? It's not a stinger. It's a shorter fire weapon. And he's saying that he got it from the American base, the American Army base. And he's just selling it on like G Market or selling it on a Korean swap meet channel. like on a Korean swap meet site. It's pretty bit of a surprise, and it's like, man, this ain't real. Is this real? This ain't real. Is this real? I don't think it's impossible, man. You see people selling stuff like this. You see people like off posts, Korean shop owners selling military gear, like US military gear, all the time. And I remember when the first time I saw it, I was walking through Itaewon, and I was like, yo, that's like an actual gas mask, man. That is somebody's mask. Somebody lost that. Hopefully they lost it, or they sold it to Ajashi in a pinch. I heard people were doing that before. Not recommended, because it's not like you're gonna get away with it, but like it's actual military gear out there in Itaewon for sale. at the shop just at the corner. Man, it's pretty crazy. People's stuff. And then like you would see, I would also like when they came out, when the uniform changed, like that store, they had the new uniforms before I had the new uniforms, and I was active duty Army. It was crazy. It's crazy to see how fast stuff gets filtered out around here in Korea, especially like the Korean military, like the Korean and military culture. It's like a weird, it's like weird things going on. Like you don't know how people know stuff, like how Korean locals know stuff before the actual soldiers know stuff. I remember people used to tell me this would happen all the time. Like you go out to the field when you're active duty Army, and then like the ajima or the shop owner, she would be out there with her truck selling ramen as soon as you got out to the field. Like she would be there set up before before you get there. And it's like, how does she know when we were going? So it's the relationship probably was the relationship between the US military and the Korean local business owners and things like that is a little closer than you would think over here. Not this close though. I'm not sure how that happened. So okay, I got a lot of video that I'm gonna drop that I'm gonna go over, or that I'm gonna share tonight. I should explain this. This is actually a video of a guy that's talking about how weird it is to be over here in Korea. I don't know if I should be blurring that or what, man, but part of doing it live. Let me go ahead and jump over to the video and share it with you. Now, I do want to share like other people's content, but I don't want to steal other people's content. Let me know if you think it's wrong. Like, I'm not gonna show you the whole video, but let me know what you guys think about watching stuff like this. I'm just gonna show like a little excerpt of it, and then
different here.
My God, it caught me off guard. And then I don't know, and then give you the link to go there and check it out. I don't think they'll have a problem with that. Another interesting thing. Let me get it straight really quick. I'm sorry, probably should have done this during a break instead of pouring beer. Another interesting thing is some of these videos are like in Facebook, as if Facebook is YouTube. And I know you can put videos up on Facebook, like, yeah, of course, but like these look like, I mean, it's like a real video. I don't know how to explain that. I don't know what I'm saying, but let me jump this up. We'll just go from here. You don't need to see it like completely perfect.
South Korea feels like another world. Things are different here. It has a homogenous culture with a lot of funny and wacky things that's different than anywhere on earth. I've gotten to know Korean culture fairly well after living and teaching English here for 2 years. I've been back every year since I left, and I'm still amazed by the uniqueness of this country.
This toilet seat heats up your butt.
Here are 12 wacky things I find about Korean culture. 1. Restaurant etiquette. Hands are dirty, chances are you'll be using toilet paper to clean them. Need to call the waiter? Just press this button and someone will come immediately. Need to cut your food? Use scissors, which makes life easier and safer than knives. Also, they sometimes sit on the floor to eat. 2. Afraid of the sun. In the Western world, a tan is considered attractive. In South Korea, it's exactly the opposite. They want to look as white as possible, and they even use whitening cream or get injections to make their skin whiter. 3. Selfie madness. Koreans take more selfies than anyone I've ever seen. Selfie sticks are rampant among the young and the old. Shall I mention the word narcissist? 4.
Yeah, man, I didn't want to hijack his whole deal there, but yeah, man, it's so he's got 12 lucky things he's talking about. That is pretty accurate so far. Let me jump off this particular picture real quick. That's pretty accurate so far. Actually, I should have just done this. All those things, man, you see it a lot. But it depends on where you are. Like, where in the circles, I never saw when I was hanging out, when I first started hanging out in Korea, I saw a lot of people who tanned. Like, there's like it just kind of depends on what culture you're into. Like, if you're just, I guess if you're Korean with a C, I say sometimes, then yeah, you do want to look as white as possible. But if you have like any affiliation, a lot of people, if they have a little affiliation, if they hang out in like Western locations, if they hang out with foreigners a lot, if they associate with foreigners a lot, then I think they tend to. But I guess that's kind of his point, right? That's what he means, Will. Like, unless like if they're Korean with a C, then they don't want to get tan. And you see people walking around in the daytime, like when with umbrellas so much that they don't want their skin to get dark. It's pretty extensive because well. So I've been told that this really originates from like people who were dark skinned, people who were tanned. They're associated with working in the fields, and they associate that with poverty or being poor because they obviously have to be outside all the time working. They ain't got that much money, and if you're white, like if you had no tan at all, if you look like you didn't get much sun, then you obviously are not so much noble, but you're obviously wealthy, like, or you're obviously well off because you don't have to be out in the sun working the fields all the time. That's what I'm told it originates from. It sounds right from what I've seen in my time here in Korea. Let me know what you think that originates from. I'm a little curious to see what everybody else's take on that is. The Chogyo button, I call that the Chogyo button. The button that you press. There's two things that he went over. I only let him touch on three things really quickly because I didn't want to show his whole video. The link, of course, is in the description, so go check it out. But the button that you press in a restaurant to call people over, that is needed in the States. They may have it. I've been over here so long. I don't remember seeing it when I was back there. But like when you want a waiter or a waitress to come over and help you out, you say Chogyo, or you call her like Imo, which means aunt. But I've had that go wrong a couple of times. Man, you know what? That was a long time ago. I've never had that go wrong recently. But like long time ago, man, I had the lady didn't look like she really appreciated it, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm just gonna say Chogyo. What's the one that doesn't get spit in my food? Yeah, I'm gonna do that from now on. So like instead of just saying Chogyo, you just press the Chogyo button and it dings and runs off, and then people will come over there and help you out, see what you want. Press on accident over and over again, especially if you got kids at the table. Another thing he talked about in there was cutting with scissors. I started cutting my pancakes with scissors. It's so easy and convenient because it's just like that's something that they need to have in the States too. Toilet tissue as the napkins, not so much. That's a real thing, but they don't need that here. The first time I saw that, I was very, very shocked. But I think his video is probably, a decent representation of what's going on in Korea. The bidets and everything like that. I don't know where he's from though. He sounds like he's from the U.S. or he's from somewhere Western. I don't know. He speaks English without an accent, but it sounds like I sounded when I first started doing this, man. Like it sounds like you just like I'm reading a script and I'm taking long awkward pauses when I say certain words. So hopefully, I hope if he's new, man, I think he'll be on point by the time it gets done. The video is pretty put together pretty nicely. So this happened. Let's go into this one. Let's just jump into, since I'm drinking beer, I'll take a sip while I'm talking about it. Cutting foods with scissors. Awesome. Yeah, he could be from Canada. That would explain. Maybe he wasn't reading the script. Maybe he wasn't uncomfortable. Maybe that's just the way he talks. So in any case, Cass still sucks. It's actually, I think this is an opinion piece. Yeah, it's an opinion piece. Yeah, it's gotta be, right? An opinion piece from Korea Times. Yo, before I jump into this, anybody who I've gotten comments of concern, I'll call them, about doing so many articles from the Korea Times, but really the Korea Times and Korea, like news in English is somewhat limited. I'm working on what? I'm working on my Korean. I'm working on my Korean so I can read articles in Korean. I'm working on a way to get articles from Korean news translated, but then you worry about things getting lost in translation. Anyway, I'm working on finding other sources of articles and things like that in Korea. So if you have any in mind, let me know, because I really don't have any real. I'm not married to the Korea Times. Like that's just where the person that I talk to gets his articles, because that's where he decides to get his English articles, and he sends me those topics for our English discussions, and they make me think of you guys. So that's why I use them all the time. But I do realize, like, sometimes they're like some of their articles today, like I said, when I said the Some of their titles are a little sensational. Some of their articles are written a little, like they have a point of view. And who doesn't? But I would like to get both point of views. So I use the Korea Times and the Korea Herald off the top of my head. And if you know of anybody else, there's some other locations that I just signed up for, some other publications that I just signed up for that should be sending over articles like weekly through email. But if you have any ideas, let me know. That's a little more time on that than I thought. But Cass still sucks. So here's the deal, man. Cass was endorsed. Who? Oh my God, did I not write it down? Jordan Ramsey, right? He endorsed Cass last week. And he was like, it's good beer. And there's like rumors floating around that his time in Korea, during that time he was here, Cass paid him like 400 million won a day. Ooh, I gotta look that. I can't back that up. And I would love to, because that's a lot of money. 400 million won a day. That's like $3,070. It's like $370,000 a day, if I'm tracking that number correctly. And that's a lot of money to endorse a project or I mean, I ain't gonna lie, man. For that much money a day, I wish Cass can get me to work for 10 years to build up my reputation to get to make that money and say they're good. Like, it's just crazy. But Gordon Ramsay has like a lot of clout, and for him to say it's not bad beer must have really, Cass was expecting that to really give them a bump, because they have to be having a hard time now. Listen, if you're freaking Cass, who did I say? I said Jordan Ramsay, huh? It's Gordon Ramsay. Burn. Nobody corrected. You didn't correct me. My boy didn't correct me. I'm just playing. No. So yeah, Gordon Ramsay, like he's like, what does it say? 400 million per day. That is $380,000 a day. That's a rumor. That's not confirmed. But if they gave him that much money, maybe he would say it was good, even if it wasn't. And so, like, the article actually goes on to say, like, Cass isn't bad beer if you compare it to like what its equivalents, right? Like, it's not Guinness. Like, if you compare it to like Budweiser or what is it, Foster's, or whatever else they say in the article, they have one more, Carling Black label. I don't even know what that is. I just want to try it just to say I know what all these beers are. But my experience, it is beer time, man. Why are we waiting? Here's an interesting thing here's my story with beer. I came to Korea when I was 19. So I didn't drink beer. And I mean, I came to Korea at the age where I was drinking Zima, Night Train, Mad Dog 2020, and Cisco. That's what I was drinking when I got over here. Cause like you had to, and then I was drinking hard liquor, cause somebody thought it would be a good idea to get me on the road to alcoholism before I even got to be 21. But yeah, man, I either drank like Bacardi, or I drank, like, if I was drinking drinks, I was drinking gross stuff. And I thought it was good, Boone's Farm and all that stuff. And I got to Korea when I was 19, got introduced to soju, and actually I hated soju when I first tasted it, but it grew on me. And I got to the point where I was like walking around and drinking soju, like just, I'm not gonna tell you. But I actually thought, like, people used to tell me that if you drank a lot of soju, it would taste like cream, like the after effect or the aftertaste would taste like cream. And one day I was drinking soju and the aftertaste really did taste like cream, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. Like, I gotta stop. I gotta figure out something. But I never did, seriously. So drinking soju and makgeolli and all these other drinks was my preferred method to, like, I just made myself think that I didn't like beer, because whenever I drank Cass, even like Cass, whenever I drank Max or Height OB, whenever I drink those drinks, I just didn't like them. So I thought beer was gross. And so I mean, I would drink it if I was in company, or I drink Somek, like we were talking about last week, the mixture of soju and beer, but I just wasn't really big on it. I drank Cass Red. Have any of you ever heard of Cass Red? I drank they had this drink out called Cass Red for a while, and it was super strong. I lost my job. I was circling a drain, and I was drinking Cass Red like a crazy person. And that was basically Cass's answer. Like they just made They just made like super strong beer. But when I went back, so when I left, I came to Korea in 2001, left in 2010, December of 2010, and went to Arizona. And the first time I had real beer was in 2010. I was almost 30 years old. I was gonna turn 30 years old, 29 years old. It's the first time I actually had real beer. They didn't have real beer over here. You couldn't get like microbreweries and things like that. The laws kind of prevented that. I'll jump into that in a minute. But the first time I got to the States and I went to a microbrewery and I actually tasted like home brewed beer, or brewed beer at the restaurant, I was like, this is delicious. Like, no wonder people are crazy about this stuff, man. Like, it's like a completely different experience. And I was like, I'm never gonna ever touch Budweiser or Cass or any of those beers that I could stomach again. So then I left Arizona. And I had no choice. But once I came back, you started to see like this growing of these microbreweries here. There's a couple, or not a couple. Oh, I'm sorry, Dan and Julia. They are not a couple. There's a partnership. They run something called the Seoul Company. You've probably heard me talk about them before. They teach you how to brew your own makgeolli, but they've been in Korea for a long time, and they know a lot about like the beer, the drinking culture, and like laws even, or the history here in Korea. And I'm gonna have them on the show at some point in time. We're getting pretty close to them. They actually have an event going on this weekend. I'll talk about that in a few. But I'm gonna have them like in the home studio, and sit and chat with them, and they can tell you about how we came to this point where you only had Cass and OB in Korea, but now you've got all these microbreweries popping up because of the release of all these laws that used to restrict things before. They'll be great guests to have on the show if we can line that up. When we can line that up, because I'm sure that'll happen. So yeah, man, they say, I mean, Cass is okay, yeah. Great chaser, or if you want to mix it with soju. Yeah, maybe. Mix with soju and cola, man. What is it now? Somekko? That's what it is. So regardless of Gordon Ramsay's endorsement, people still don't think Cass is all that great. Again, it's good for what it is. One more video, man. I did put together a lot of videos. I didn't realize how many I did, though. That's kind of a lot. But I do want to kind of talk about this one. I just minimized my thing. So we talked a little bit about President Moon last time on last week's show. Somebody in the chat mentioned that he's like the first real democratic president, I guess, or first, yeah, I think by far. We're just gonna jump on and watch this little video with President Moon, because I think people would have something to say about this, in the comments. But what? How'd that start? What is happening?
안녕하세요. 제 이름은 조시고요.
Yeah, I completely ruined that, man. Like, I don't even really know how. Like, I'm a little confused about how all that just went down. Give me one quick minute. I almost got it. OBS like started it without me really like wanting it to start. There we go. Okay. Cool.
준이? 놀랬지?
네.
준이가 여기 있다 그래서 이거로 보러 왔지.
안녕하세요.
Just for the record, my man is
빨리
sitting in the laundromat, a college student, doing his laundry, and the president of South Korea walks in and just starts talking to him. Asks him, "Are you doing laundry?"
네, 지금 제 이불 빨래 하고 있습니다.
오, 이불 빨래?
네.
아니 근데
네네네.
이게 빨래하는 사이에도 지금 책 보고 있는 거예요?
예, 좀 뭔가 불안해서.
오, 대단한데.
아닙니다.
열심히 하네. 무슨 시험 공부해?
저는 군무원 준비하고 있습니다.
언제 시험 있어요?
올해 7월 달에 있어요.
경쟁률이 어떤데?
제가 알기로는 120대 1.
120.
He's doing what So he's doing what I do and a couple of my friends do. He's studying to be, they call it kumuwan. That's actually a government employee. So the way it works here in Korea, they actually have to take a test, and they have to test to be kumuwans or government workers. So that's what he's studying to do. Just to point out something really quick, man. Like, I don't know if you guys can see this where you are, but I noticed this when I was watching this video earlier. Like the security, I'm a little concerned about the security of President Moon. When you watch him like walk up, he's just like walking in, man. Hold on, I'm sorry. Am I on the right thing? Like he's just like strolling in, and the reason I'm a little I'm surprised by it is because there's like no. If you look at the background, you just see buses going by and stuff. Like there's no blocking. It's just people walking by. Like there's like the security looks a little taxing. Like that is like just a bus at the corner going by like nothing happened. You would never get anything like that with the U.S. president. I'm a little surprised, but this is President Moon's like jumping out there doing laundry. And people talked about it. They're like, hey, it's like nothing, right? It's just a what is it? It's just a publicity stunt. He's just trying to get attention, and well, you get people saying things much worse than that, but it's just a kind of a media ploy, but it's a pretty damn good media ploy to come and go out and help a college student do his laundry. I think that fits the bill. Now knowing what I know now, I think about these like shows and things like that, I think I realized that even his surprise, it probably isn't that genuine. He probably knew everything that was about to happen, and it's kind of all they probably did this take like a bunch of times and said, hey man, you need to be more surprised. The president just walked in, so be more surprised. Oh no, that's too much surprise. You're too surprised. Be a little less surprised. I got some freezing going on here, I think. Let's make sure we're good to go. I'm sorry. I'm a little confused about what we got going on here. I'm frozen. Can you guys still see me? Like on my screen, I'm not even moving. Not sure what's going on there. Hang on one quick second, guys. My device, like, whoa. Okay, we hang on one quick second. I'll be right back. Little bit of confusion going on. So, had something, a little strange mishap there. Capture card failed on me. I believe I am back. That was weird. Yeah, frozen, man. Am I back? Let me know if I'm still there. What was I talking about? Oh, so Korea's first Democratic president. I don't know. You get a lot of. I mean, I saw like, of course, it's politics. So of course, there's gonna be a lot of trash talk from each side and things like that. But I personally like President No and President Moon's approach to being, being approachable and being like regular. I don't know, not having this elitist mindset, and not having this. I don't know. They just have like this really calm, like they try to be, and I don't know if this is a good idea, but they have this uncle Samchun. They call it uncle, or Samchun is how you say uncle in Korea, but they have this Samchun demeanor, and even President No's wife is out like helping them serve like dinner or somewhere. I mean, they want to give the impression that they're out there for the people, and I mean, I really hope they are. The thing is, though, that does not jive well with other current leaders right now, so it may be misconstrued as something else. I don't know. Even its policy, I don't even really. The thing about politics in Korea, as a foreigner, you're not supposed to get involved with their politics. Even though I see expats out there at like rallies and things like that all the time, I think I would wager, and somebody chime in if you see this, chime in and let me know if I'm wrong. But I would wait, like your actual status says that you can't participate in the politics unless you get the status of ordinary resident. And so that really kind of, I think some people kind of put themselves in danger when they get out there and get involved in the politics in South Korea. I mean, you can say who you like and stuff like that, but the idea of like taking part in rallies and things like that does not sound like a good idea. Not if you want to stay. If you don't mind getting booted out, then it seems like you can have at it. So let me go ahead and jump on one last video that I have here. I don't even know. This is the reason I want to share this video, is because I talked about like what life is like in Seoul, and this is a college student who is transferring schools that has to move apartments. And this reminds me of when I first did my own version of a transfer out of the army. It's burning. Out of the army to become an English teacher and teach English in Ilsan. But this is pretty much how, I mean, this is almost just about how I was living. Actually, he takes it a step further than how I was living. Let me go ahead and share this with you guys real quick.
This laptop could have funded my living situation right now for the next year. That's how cheap this room is. Alright, hello. So today I am moving out of my one-room apartment here in Sincheon, Seoul. I'm transferring from Sogang to Seoul National University, so basically moving to the other side of Seoul. This is my first apartment in Seoul. I'm gonna miss this place so much. Literally everything you can do is in one room. I could poop and cook and do laundry and study and sleep in the same room, and probably all at the same time. The Goshi one is going to be not as convenient, obviously, and a lot smaller, but it's also about half as expensive as this room. I think this is about like 500. The Goshi one's like 250, 1,000 won a month. All right, so this is my new apartment.
This is what he changed to.
So this camera is at one end of the room right now. I can basically touch one end of the room and the other end of the room at the same time. I mean, I'm not complaining. It has everything I need. We got a bed right here. We got food right here. TV that I'll never ever use. Some storage. AC.
Yeah, man. I never hit that point where I went to the Goshiwon, but I did have to live, like his first apartment You know, to be completely honest, I lived on the Korean economy with no support a pretty long time ago. So I mean, a lot changes in Korea in a short amount of time. So I lived on the economy. I got out of the army in 2006. So from January, from June 2006 to January 2007, like I lived in a place called Huomdong, in a place called Dragon House, man. It's like old memories. That was me and my wife's first apartment, and it literally was bigger than his first apartment, but every apartment we looked at first was the same size as his first apartment. And I was like, I need a little more space, man. Like, me and you getting married, I need my computer room, we need our bedroom, and at least the living room and the kitchen were like the same room. Like, it was just basically, that's what it was. And I think it was maybe 28 pyong or something like that. Real small apartment. And it was a long time ago, like a small apartment in a villa. And I mean, I don't know, I always have fond memories of that place. The only thing is, like, every now and then during a certain time of year, you get like bugs, man. There's like a big cockroach, like one that flew. And you find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh my God, somebody get that bug. And then suddenly you're the person that's supposed to get that bug. I'm like, no, I'm scared. I don't want to kill it, man. Let's just suck it up with the vacuum cleaner. But yeah, that's just crazy how, like, his room is probably, I mean, that whole apartment, his first apartment, probably the size of my kid's bedroom right now. Like, it has, like, I mean, smaller, man. It's gotta be smaller. Definitely smaller than the room I'm in right now. But that's like college life when you're here in Korea. Like, you get like a small little 1-bedroom apartment, and you go ahead and have everything in your vicinity. Now, here's the interesting thing. He was in Shincheon, which I would like. That's where me and Uni met, actually. But he was in Shincheon, which is in like Kongbuk. It's like north of the river. And then he moved universities from, I think he said, I forgot the names of the universities that he said, but he moved down south to like Gangnam area. And that's why he probably had to downgrade, because Shincheon is like known, that's where Yonsei University is. So it's full of students. And so they have like places like that for students. But when you move down, like, I'm surprised his rent went down, to be honest. But when he moved to Goshiwon, he probably didn't have the options of one rooms there. They either have Goshiwons or they have like regular apartments. And in Gangnam, stuff is super expensive. So he probably didn't have much of a choice. But hey, you can, like, if you want to rough it, like, there's some people that out there that have that minimalist lifestyle, or that minimalist way of living, that you can do that in a small apartment like that. That was basically a box. I mean, like, just a little bit bigger, and I got too much going on for me right now to have like living in a box. But I mean, the room I'm in right now is bigger than the space that he had. But actually, you know, part of me actually misses that, where you just had to kind of be scrappy and be young, you know, and just kind of go with what you can get, right? And just pay 250,000 won for a little room that you're gonna keep while you're in school. That's pretty cool. And then the one thing I like, they have these things called they have office tales in Korea. I actually wrote a blog post a long time ago on like apartment living, like Seoul's apartment complex. I'll come back and leave that in the link, or maybe I'll link that up in the Seoulweavers Facebook group. If you're not part of it, please be sure to join. But like, the apartment living in Seoul has so many different levels. Like, you live in an apartment, I don't want to say like up or down, but you can be over here living in an apartment like me, where you got like all the amenities and everything except for a dishwasher. And then you can like go like the complete opposite and have the bare minimum space and live in like a place where you can touch one wall with your hand and then pick up and kick the other wall with your feet, and like everything in between. So it's even though it's expensive to live in a city, you can still make it if you find places like that, and if you don't mind just being, again, scrappy and resourceful with whatever you have. It's pretty cool. I would say one more thing. The moment you get out of Seoul, and this probably happens in every big city, every major city, where like the moment you get far, things change drastically. The apartment I was talking about earlier, where I had like one bathroom and the kitchen and the living room were basically the same room and 2 bedrooms. We moved. I think I paid $850 a month for rent, and that was a really, really lucky deal because no telling what that would cost right now. Because Seoul is like Manhattan or something like the prices are just up there when it comes to like rent and things like that. I moved to Pyeongtaek, like out of the city, like another town that's an hour and a half down south, and on a good day, and like I gained an extra bathroom. My rent dropped $200 a month, and I just gave him like a little bit of key money, and I just had like this huge spacious apartment, and it was just like, man, that's crazy. Like that, like just the fact that you're in Seoul really makes your apartment super, super expensive. Oh, and I wouldn't even tell you what I pay on it now, but if you know me, cacao me, I'll tell you how much expensive this is. So what else did I have? One last thing I want to touch on before I jump off here, man. This right here. So you may hear me say this often about either K-pop or how I'm not a fan of K-pop, but I'm a fan of K-pop girl groups. There's a reason I'm not a fan of K-pop, and it's not really the music that is the issue. It's the culture around it. Now, that disconnect kind of threw me off, and I actually have to go in and find this. Hopefully I can. I'm sorry, give me one quick minute. But the culture around K-pop is actually very toxic. Like the things that your favorite K-pop stars go through is like nightmarish. They find themselves in terrible, terrible situations. And this article is actually shared. The first time I saw it was shared on Oink by Travis Hull, who Travis is no longer in Korea, but I'm gonna see if he wants to jump on and do a quick interview on the show because he was here for a long time and he started a very prominent group in Korea. Say what you want about Oink, which Oink means only in Korea. It's OINK, only in Korea. Say what you will about Oink, but it is prominent, and it does. Some of the posts can be a little trolly, and people in there can be a little trolly, and it can be a little I don't know, man. It'd be crazy in Oink, man. The post, the responses, it's cut down a lot. But the first time I joined that group, literally every other day there would be a post in Oink that would make me want to like just quit the group. And you would watch people rage quit like every day, and they just talk crap about everybody in that group because it seems so negative at times. And people are just trolling and just talking crap about life in Korea. And it's like, if you hate it here this much, then why do you stay? And then eventually it kind of got under control. People kind of, I don't know if Travis got under control or what, but it kind of mellowed out, and you can get some actually good information in there. So, and then when I spoke to Travis, when I met him the first time, or the one time, I didn't meet him any times after that, I actually realized what he's doing for Oink. And I realized that even though people were griping, it was hard to stay in that group. That was actually the demographic that I might one day be able to serve if I paid attention to what they were saying. In any case, this was in Oink. It wasn't as trolly as you would think, but the disturbing truth behind K-pop music, and this goes into how your favorite K-pop stars, or the ones that don't make it, right? Like your favorite K-pop stars are like groups, like the cream of the crop. Freaking Blackpink is like, there's like 20 more, I don't know, maybe 200 more groups for every one group that you see that makes it up there in day 6 and all them. And they go through a lot of trouble where they're signing contracts with companies that are kind of screwing them over and taking their time, and all these terrible, terrible things that really happen behind the scenes to make these cute little music videos where these girls are dancing around. It's in this video. I'm not going to show it because I just don't have the time, and I've been on for an hour and 50 minutes but you really should check this out. Link is in the description. It talks about how some of the K-pop members, or some of the aspiring K-pop members, they're the ones that really they don't get a lot of money. They kind of sign over their rights for 7 to 15 years. They sometimes get caught up in prostitution rings, or things that are prostitution rings that are disguised as something else, like escorts or whatever. They want to make money on their investment, and if they're not making as much money, at their concerts or at their debut or on their debuts or from their album sales, then they find themselves having to do a lot of things that are not cool. And you probably, and I don't think it's much, I mean, and like this article goes into plastic surgery and stuff like that. I don't think it's much different from the States, from the US, because it's the same extortion. You're extorting young people, you're extorting the desire of young people to be famous. Right. You're distorting young people's desire to be famous and like taking advantage of them. And that is K-pop in a nutshell. That being said, K-pop groups, guy or girls, the ones that make it, they speak to a lot of people out there in the world. So I think that's kind of the reason that Korean culture or life in Korea has become so popular, because of these groups and the stuff that these guys go through. I don't know, man. Maybe it's a double-edged sword. Maybe it's something that needs to happen that is just an unfortunate side effect of, I mean, because it brings a lot of money into the country. Like, I would love to talk to somebody who actually knows like the effect, who actually studies the effect, because before K-pop, when I got here to Korea, nobody like knew where it was. Like, they had heard of it. You had a Korean friend or something like that. But no, back then, nobody even distinguished between North Korea and South Korea. And K-drama and K-pop have really put these places, or has really like take it. I mean, it didn't put the country on the map, but it played a major role in putting the country on the map to the younger generation, I would say. I don't know if that's, I don't know. That's a take that I have. Everybody that comes over here now seems to be infatuated with K-pop. They call them Korea boos. I myself, again, not so much a fan of K-pop as I am a fan of K-pop girl groups, and I feel terrible about it when I realize what they go through, or what some of these groups are going through that you never even see. It's pretty crazy. Stellar has a piece in here where they're explaining why they had to go so sexy, because Stellar got so much crap. Between Stellar and Bambino, I think those two groups were like the most like hated groups by like Korean netizens, because they just were over the top sexy and doing things that really just didn't need to be doing, stuff that really didn't need to be done to get popular, or in their eyes didn't need to be done to get popular. But I'm sure they weren't working on their own accord. I don't know, man. It's pretty tough. What would you do to be a K-pop star? That's like the question of the day. What would be the line? What would be the drawing line to say, okay, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. You're just gonna have to, I don't know, take my breach of contract and take whatever money I owe you, and I don't know. Probably the price is pretty high for people nowadays, especially if you're young. So that's about all I have. Actually, no, I think I got a couple of events. So this is onto the event segment, and just to knock this out and be done for the evening, this is the Seoul the expat fair is happening this weekend. I'm actually going to this. Trying to figure out whether to go on Saturday or Sunday. A friend of mine is going to be there on Saturday. A couple of friends of mine are going to be there on Sunday. I'm probably going to end up going on Sunday and doing like a makgeolli thing, like drinking some makgeolli and eating some great Korean barbecue on Saturday night. I'm not terribly sure, but they have both the expat fair, which is there on the left hand side, that's going to last 2 days, again Saturday and Sunday, and then the expat fair after party, which is going to take place Saturday night. Again, link in the description. You should check this out. It's a fair that's going to it's a fair that's going to have companies there that cater to expats. I'm going to go there and check it out. I'm hoping to run into companies that actually are owned by expats, or like entities that are owned by expats or partially owned by expats, and that are there to serve certain needs. I forgot about that. Certain needs based on what they see or what they've seen from their time here in Korea. I'm really looking forward to going there, because I really want to get in contact with those guys and talk to them about what inspired them and what made them go ahead and come out and try to do this challenging thing of just take this challenge of opening a business here in Korea, because it's different from home. It's not the same. That's why I really want to get Adam on that I met this weekend, because he definitely has a story to tell, and he's trying to give back to the community, trying to simultaneously give back to the community while running his business. But yeah, Expat Fair. If you're gonna be there Sunday, I think I'm leaning towards Sunday. I guess I've kind of made up my mind. But if you're gonna be there Sunday, you might see me there. So holla at your boy. And then also from the Expat Fair, they are actually doing a giveaway. And they're gonna give away 1 round trip ticket to LA. So again, go to the link in the description, find out about the details, and you can, I think you have to comment and like and share their post to enter into that contest automatically. And that's it. So that's all I got going on, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, checking this out. Let me know what you think about some of the topics that we talked about. The breadth was like huge in this one this time, man. I think we really went from point A to point B. I didn't even think this was gonna last this long. Probably overdid it, but that's kind of the way it goes, man. So appreciate your time. I'm gonna head on out. I'm already like sweating like crazy. Your boy got his hair done, but you really can't tell with these headphones on. Probably it looks much better. Probably get something to plug into my ears from now on, just so you can see it. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We're starting to get more active on social media, and we want to kind of engage into a conversation with you guys that way. And again, if you're not part of the Seoulweavers Facebook group, be sure to join up there as well, because I'm sharing things there throughout the week, and taking recommendations of media sources and books and other topics that you guys want to share with us there. So be sure to join us there, and just send out an invite or send out a request for invite, and you'll get that invite. I'll see you guys next week. Not sure what the topic of the podcast will be. We'll come up with something eventually by then. If you got any recommendations, feel free to submit them, again, via Twitter or Instagram in the Seoulweaver Facebook group. I'll be out of here, guys. Back next week. See you then. Thanks so much for tuning in. Love you guys. Will Brooks out. Seoulweaver Show.